Welcome to the Inspiration North podcast, inspiring stories from inspirational people and how they found their passion, their true north. I'm James Eves.
And I'm Michelle Minikin, and this is the Inspiration North podcast.
Our guest on this episode is Lizzy Hodcroft. Finding your purpose and see what happens, the stigma around failure, and stealing the Downing Street cat.
Lizzy is a one-woman force of nature, a tsunami of passion and commitment that typifies entrepreneurs. Her enormously ambitious and passionate vision for her proactive stance on mental health in entrepreneurs certainly helps to address a subject that is not always pushed into the limelight. Lizzy originally fell in love with startup when starting her business, the Sweet Beet, which recently appeared on Dragon's Den. She is often busy with public speaking and creating her new business as co-founder in myndr. For the past 2 years, she has won Young Entrepreneur of the Year for the Northeast. Her story shapes a narrative of true entrepreneurship and through that, a path to recovery, self-discovery and enlightenment. Hi Lizzy, thank you ever so much for coming into the studio today. So the first question is, what did you want to be when you grew up?
So I never really had an answer to this growing up. And it always made me feel really weird because you got to see all the other kids around you being so passionate with conviction and confidence, saying that they wanted to be a doctor or they wanted to be a fireman or whatever. And I do know there was a period of time where I did want to be a vet. Then I discovered that I was really terrible at science and it probably wouldn't work out too well. For a while when I was playing soccer at kind of the competitive league in the States, I did, honest to God, want to be the first woman player to be on the England men's team. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that obviously didn't work out either.
Never too late.
Yeah. But those future type questions are always difficult for me. I mean, even when people say like, oh, where do you see your business in 5 years or whatever, I'm always like, partly because I think the process is so much fun and I like to be involved in that and see where things take me. But also it just seems so definitive when you put like an answer to something like that. Or maybe it's just this fear of like, if I decide on something and then don't achieve it, how will I feel? I don't know, but it was, when I grew up, I guess I had no idea.
Which is fine as well. I mean, we often meet people that say, oh, I knew I wanted to be X, Y, Z when I grow up. And I think that's great. But I also think it's great that it's fine to not know what you want to do. And it's part of the path, isn't it? That
Absolutely. I mean, I just take it from that Sunscreen song, where he says like some of the most interesting 40-year-olds I know still don't know what they want to be. And that's where I take comfort, from the Sunscreen song.
That's a good song.
It is a good song. Should bring it back out.
We should vote for it for Christmas number one next year.
Oh, yes. There you go.
Yeah, we do. Okay. So for those listening, it's probably fairly obvious that you do not originate from the Northeast. So how on earth did you find yourself here, Lizzy?
So I was born in Scotland with my older sister Emma and then my mom and my dad, a little family unit. But it didn't work out like a lot of parents' marriages these days. They divorced. My mom went back to the States with my older sister and I think I must have been about 2 at the time. But part of their sort of agreement was that every summer and every other winter we would go over to the UK and visit my dad. So I was really lucky to have the opportunity to almost grow up in both places. But essentially what kind of brought me over here in the first place is that I was a pretty terrible kid growing up. And at the age of 17, it was like, Lizzy, you've got to get yourself into rehab, sort yourself out. So I did that. I was up in Utah for about 5 months. And then once I got out, my mom said, we don't want you back home, which is fair. She didn't want me to fall back into the exact same situation that I was in beforehand. So I moved over to the UK to be with my dad. Started at Newcastle College, trained as a chef, did that for a year, did okay. And then I was like, great, well, I'm gonna move back to the States because, this wasn't really my choice. So I'm going to go back, see what I can do. I lasted about 6 months. I came back over to visit my dad at Christmas time, and what was supposed to be like a 2-week visit ended up being a 2-month visit. And I only went back in the February to basically empty out my apartment, grab all my stuff, and come back over. But that was, it was just, I was still in that phase of trying to figure out where I fit and what I wanted. I mean, you could have asked me then, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I still would have been like, I don't know. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of like how I got here. I worked in hospitality for a long time, front and back of house. I think it quickly became apparent to me that there is a ceiling to that. And also, I think I was just bored more than anything else. I needed a challenge. I didn't feel like I was getting challenged. And when I'm bored, sometimes I tend to get myself into trouble. So I needed to figure out something else to work on. And that's when I kind of started to dabble around in street food and trying to figure out where that would take me.
Mm-hmm. And by street food, is there any particular type of cuisine that's of greatest interest to you?
Yeah. So it's gotten a lot better over here since, but one of the things that I used to do when I would go over to Texas and visit is I would like just basically screw all the clothes, just pack my bag with food, and then, you know, kind of bring it over here and tell everybody, no, I don't have any food in my bag. It's totally fine. And so I really wanted to kind of bring those sort of tastes and flavors to the Northeast and to the UK. So we worked on things like avocado tacos, sort of fajitas, things like that, sweet potato and beetroot nachos, bit of a spin on things. And I really enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed the freedom and kind of getting to explore and do my own thing and be my own boss. But I was also making the condiments on the side at the time. And someone approached me seeing if they could put that into their own little like independent store. And that kind of set me off on my journey with the Sweet Beet and becoming a bit more of an entrepreneur and somebody within the food retail space.
So it's, one thing that came to mind is everyone who I know is American or Canadian comes over to the UK and they're like, oh, Mexican food sucks in the UK. It's really bad. So all these flavors and things. I mean, I think when you think back sort of 15, 20 years, the variety in supermarkets has got a lot better. I think the palettes perhaps widened a bit from, I don't know, say our grandparents' era where
meat and 2 veg.
Yeah, garlic bread was exotic, that kind of thing.
Ooh, spaghetti bolognese, not foreign muck.
I was there last week. It'll be the Chinese we had, but that was 3 months ago, that kind of thing. So this thing of introducing new flavors. So it's this journey. You don't know what you want to do. You found yourself in hospitality, and then all of a sudden there's this opportunity making condiments. You've mentioned the Sweet Beet, so maybe you can describe that a bit more.
As I said, Sweet Beet, it started out originally as a street food concept. Just during that time, so I just kind of done my first summer as a Sweet Beet, kind of doing more street food type stuff. And then in the sort of August time, I got accepted and started on what was then Entrepreneurial Spark, which is now the NatWest Business Hub. Mm-hmm. And it was just kind of right time, right place, to be honest, because they really helped me kind of cut out a bit of a vision for myself and figure out what was going to be scalable and what was going to be required in order for me to get to whichever direction I decided to sort of plan my route with. Originally, I kind of thought I think I want sort of like a bricks and mortar place, but the outlay as far as finance to do something like that is extremely costly upfront. You're, employing people off the bat and having to sort of really go full throttle with everything from the very beginning. And it was something that I wouldn't have been able to do on my own. Whereas going down the food retail route, that meant that I could actually spend time outsourcing the manufacturing. I could spend time building the business and focus on kind of scaling and growing that. And it was also interesting because I was moving from being a chef and understanding more the hospitality and catering side into this kind of food retail side, which is just essentially like a massive amount of branding and marketing. And I also didn't realize that when I first set off, what I was doing was so weird, I guess. the Sweet Beet, we do kind of alternative condiments. We've got things like maple bacon jam, oak smoked apple butter, strawberry chipotle barbecue sauce. And those all seemed, really normal to me. Not normal to the UK palate. The education piece that needed to be written about that and the way that we branded and marketed our message really had to be thought about. And it has been quite challenging in that way. But at the same time, it's also given me the opportunity to move into over 100 farm and deli shops. We're with Whole Foods, we're with Ocado, we're with Fennec. And that's all while I'm still the only person in the business.
It's amazing. It's amazing. So what has been the biggest highlight with the Sweet Beet?
So, yeah, probably winning Young Entrepreneur of the Year in 2017. I luckily can say I won it 2 years in a row, so I got 2018 as well. But especially in 2017, it was that opportunity to actually look back and be like, holy moly, this is how far I've come. Mm-hmm. And kind of give myself a pat on the back. And it made me a little bit emotional in a way to think like, okay, I came from somebody who literally had to teach myself how to live again at one point because I was so far down a rabbit hole that I'm actually being chose to represent young female founders in the Northeast.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And tell us about the Dragon's Den.
Yeah. That was interesting. I got approached by one of the ladies that was doing research for the show and asked if I would be interested in giving it a go. I thought, why not give it a try? So originally you go down to the Manchester studio and you just do like a pitch. They record it, they give it to their producer. The producer watches all of them, decides whether you're good or terrible or whatever. If you pass that part, it's then due diligence. So backing up every single thing that you've claimed or said with the actual sort of, paperwork behind it. And then it's kind of a waiting game because there's still a chance that they might not call you if they don't feel like what you're doing fits into what they're trying to put together as just show. I was actually down in Derby for a tasting with the Sweet Beet when they called, and they were basically like, yeah, we need you in not tomorrow, but the day after. And Brilliant. I was like, are you kidding? Like, I'm all the way in Derby. Like, what's going on? I asked if they could push it back, but they basically said, listen, it's now or never. It's either you do it now or, just don't bother type thing. So it was all hands on deck. Rushed, got my stuff in the car, like told the guys at Derby, I was like, I'm sorry, but I'm leaving. Got back up to Newcastle, had enough time to sort of get my bits and pieces together. And then it's like straight down to Manchester. It was definitely one of the most nerve-wracking experiences I've ever been through, to the point where I could actually physically feel my body like shaking nearly the whole day. But it was pretty amazing to kind of walk through there and then just see, that exact scene that you watch on TV, but it's right there in front of you and it's real and it's tangible and they're all staring at you. And you just think like, oh, this would be a terrible time to forget everything that I just planned. But you don't. Somehow you just kind of start and you make it through. And it was really positive. I didn't get investment for anybody that may not have watched it or is looking to watch it. Sorry for the spoiler, but didn't get investment, but I also didn't get torn apart. I didn't get told I was wasting everyone's time, including my own. And on top of that, they were really complimentary. They seemed to at least recognize my focus, my passion, and we did get to talk around mental health a little bit, which was pretty cool. Jenna Campbell said that I should be a motivational speaker. So,
you never know what's coming next.
Not too bad. And of course, watching it back was pretty epic. In fact, my heart rate, I'm pretty sure matched my heart rate that day, even though I knew everything that was going to happen. I could just feel it in my chest, just bounding to come out. And then I got to hear the comments that they said afterwards, which I didn't when I was walking out the room. So that was pretty cool. And It's been interesting since then. I've had everything from people sending me business plans to people in completely different industries offering me jobs. And yeah, it's been fun, as well as just the people that have reached out to say, you know, I appreciate your pitch and identify with your story and wish you the best of luck.
Oh, that's lovely.
It is, yeah.
It's such a great experience. So how does that affect then what you think about next based on the feedback you've had, etc.?
Well, I do think that the dragons kind of hit the nail on the head a little bit. The Sweet Beet, like, we have done really well, and there's still a lot of potential within the business. But I have to admit, I have become a little jaded with the food industry. I think, you know, sometimes you just feel like you're back in high school or something, and it can be a bit frustrating to kind of have those realizations. And I think you probably have them a bit more and more as you get older. You know, you start a new job and you think like, oh great, all these people really know what they're doing, and after about a week you're like, man, everyone's dumb.
Everyone's winging it.
Yeah. And it is kind of disappointing. I mean, you get to the point where you're like, oh great, I get to have a conversation with Sainsbury's, but what that really means is that you just get to have a conversation with, you know, people that just regular human beings in a regular job. And so the Sweet Beet, we're kind of in a bit of a transitional phase. I'm not really sure what's going to happen and how we're going to move forward. We're still doing everything as is, and kind of keeping it ticking, but I'm definitely dabbling in other projects, and that seems to be where I'm kind of heading, to be honest.
And that sounds like a great segue.
It's good. Well done.
Wonderful. Couldn't have timed that even better. So you've mentioned mental health. That came up in the dragons. So why not send us on that little bit of journey?
One of the things that I've tried to be really vocal about since kind of being on this journey of entrepreneurship and discovering the startup world is how much it really changed me as a person and helped me go on a path of kind of self-discovery and enlightenment. Building a business, learning that what you have to do has to come from you, and being able to see the results from that, and being able to really take the opportunity to, when you do fail or when you do mess up, learn from that and put that in your bucket of knowledge, is one of the coolest things that I've ever done. And I really want to make this a easier journey for people to recognize is an option for them. I never realized that I could live the kind of lifestyle that I'm living now, where I'm in charge of how I spend my day, and I get to, you know, pick and choose who I meet and who I spend my time with, and how I move forward. It's really empowering, and it made me realize the value that I had to give to the world, which before then I really struggled to pinpoint and figure out. So I started doing a bit of public speaking. I started opening up a little bit within the kind of NatWest Hub, which was a safe space, running a few monthly meetups for talking about mental health and entrepreneurship. And I also met Emma Riley. So Emma was in the NatWest Business Hub with me. We sat next to each other. She was working on a different business, but we really bonded over how challenging it can be to have issues with your mental health, or even just poor self-confidence or feeling a bit like an imposter when you're trying to run a business. We kept in touch, and then in sort of July, August this year, she approached me and told me about an idea that she had, which was to make a sort of mental health gym, in a way, like an app that people could hopefully get some support and comfort through, especially when we're living in this time through the NHS, where we have unacceptably long wait times and the barrier to access these services is actually being raised. So we came up with myndr, and I was thrilled to be a part of that and get on board with that. We applied for the Ignite Pre-Accelerator, somehow managed to get on with just an idea and pretty much nothing else. And that really made us go forward with our idea. So it's all about kind of harnessing the power of peer-to-peer mental health collaboration, giving people the tools and resources they need to identify and then break down goals. I know for me personally, looking back through my journey, where I was given so much support to get past drug addiction or get past depression or anxiety and just like these general feelings of angst towards myself, was, although the tools that I was given, the places I was sent, the people that I had workshops and one-to-ones with was brilliant, it was always given to me under this pretense that I already knew who I was and where I wanted to be and what I valued. And I think that's part of the reason why it took me so many attempts to go through those kind of stages of recovery to kind of get to where I was. And so what I really want to do with myndr is really help people to identify what they value and identify what their passion and purpose is before they start trying to do anything else. At the end of the day, chasing a goal that you don't either identify or value essentially just stunts your growth for progression and change, and ultimately could lead you to feel even worse than you already do, because you would fail at something that you never really planned on succeeding with in the first place. But also kind of recapturing what happiness is, and the fact that, you know, it really is kind of the light that comes out of the dark, or the baby that comes out of the painful process of childbirth. Happiness is when you have overcome to achieve, and you can really sit there and resonate in that space and realize that you've done something great.
It's fabulous. It's really good. So how do people access, and who are your customers, I suppose?
So myndr at the minute, we're still very early stage. What we're doing at the minute is we've put together a sort of newsletter, which is pretty cool. We've collaborated with over 25 different businesses, everyone from like industry leaders to influencers to other founders, and also Emma and I ourselves. Basically, you get an email on the Monday, which is more about somebody's story, mostly relating to kind of the more personal struggles that we go through as business owners and as leaders. And then on Friday, we have this thing called Fuck Up Friday, which is where you get emails from founders and business owners that have just royally messed up in some way, shape, or form. What we're essentially trying to do around that is, number one, give people like, you know, maybe a little chuckle in the day, but also to remove the stigma around failure and hopefully increase the chances of people to have that resilience to get back on the horse and try again and just sort of normalize it. We did a survey when we first started out around mental health, and out of the probably about 150 responses that we had, it was unbelievably shocking to realize how many of those had people struggling, had people worrying, had people feeling lost or feeling though they couldn't talk to anybody. It's that kind of weird feeling of going out onto Northumberland Street, and as you watch everyone pass you by, you know that that person's struggling with this and that person's struggling with that, and we're all kind of suffering in our own way, yet nobody's really talking about it.
Suffering in silence.
Yeah, and I think especially with entrepreneurship, that's a hard one, because especially when you're looking to put your best foot forward, or you're looking for, say, investment, a lot of people don't want to be honest about their demons when it comes to that. And I have to admit that when I first kind of started this dialogue, it was something that I did worry about, and my family worried about, was, you know, Lizzy, if you tell everybody that, you know, you've done this and this and this, they're just going to think that you are mad. And do you want that? And do you want that influencing who wants to do business with you or who wants to know you? But I just kind of thought, like, well, if I don't do it, then who is? And I, more than anything, more than success in business and more than being able to continue on this career path, is I just want to be honest, and I just want to be open, and I just want to be authentically me and not have to worry about the consequences of that, because there should never be consequences for your past, as far as the decisions that you made way back when, and there should never be consequences for you being willing to be open about the struggles that by all means everyone else is going through at the same time.
It's deceptive, isn't it? Because I guess you've got your entrepreneurial experience, there's the myndr side, and it's really when you start talking to others, you start to realize, oh, you feel that as well. Oh, I'm glad somebody said it. And I suppose there's almost a movement, isn't there, of, I mean, my sister is a counsellor, so you see a lot of mental health challenges in schools from children who should not be stressed and as anxious as they are. But it's snowballing into adulthood, and then, as you've said, you don't talk about it, so you kind of have to be resilient. It's entrepreneurship isn't really just about the cool side of choosing your day. There's a lot more to it, and that persistence, the struggle is very difficult. But hopefully it's dare I call it a movement, change in society. We can talk about these things, we can discuss them openly. It's fine to struggle. You struggle too, great. So I really like that you can take your own experience as an entrepreneur into a new direction to help others. It's very inspiring.
Absolutely. I mean, especially when you talk about like sort of where it starts in childhood and is sort of spilling over. It's something that I've kind of thought around, and I've kind of arrived at the conclusion that it kind of comes down to validation from when we're really little, and not that I think this is the wrong thing to do, but obviously we're told, you know, these are the rules, these are the standards, and these are the things that we expect, and you go through learning, you know, you do good, you get reward, you do bad, you get consequences that you might not want, type thing. But what we're not really taught is, after we kind of learn those social norms, how do we then start to mold who we are? And how do we then set our own expectations and set our own ways of validating who we are as a human being and where we stand in life? And because of that, I think that that's why so many of us get kind of lost, is that we're still allowing other people to set expectations for us, and then feeling shit when we don't meet those expectations that perhaps we never really wanted to meet in the first place. I know personally that it's something that I go through with family, especially my father, because I do want to make him proud and I want to do the right thing for him. But often what he thinks is the right thing isn't really what I always value and identify with. And it's learning how to be okay based on your own standards and expectations. But that's a really difficult one as well, because I always thought, like, well, if I can just be a good person, then that's enough. If I can just make sure that my intentions are pure and good, then that should be enough. And I kind of thought, well, no, that's not really enough for me. Would I really be happy with that? And I realized that part of the reason why I wouldn't be happy with that is because I do need that external validation in a way. Not to necessarily have people be like, oh, Lizzy, you're such a good person, but to have people understand that I am trying to do good. And I want to feel that acceptance, and I want to feel that love and that guidance from people. And I think that's where the confusion sometimes happens.
Yeah, that's great. And I think it is being recognised, because you had a nice little invitation recently, haven't you?
Yeah, I have.
I've done some really good stalking, haven't I?
Yeah, good job, good job. Yeah, so I got an invitation to go to Downing Street in February, and...
Are you going to lead the Brexit negotiations?
Well, that's it. I'm pretty sure they're just going to be like, do you want to be Prime Minister? Because we've given up.
Vote Lizzy.
Yeah.
I totally would.
I think my solution would just be like, cats for everybody. And they'd be like, no, Lizzy, that's not what we need. We need a trade deal. Yeah, so basically the invitation is to... Oh, I know. It's to go down to Downing Street, steal the cat, and then come... No, I'm just kidding. Go down to Downing Street, and it is a meeting for female founders to discuss with some investors and venture capitalists the barriers to accessing that type of funding, which I think is going to be really interesting. And if anything, they'll probably regret that they invited me.
Yeah, I probably need to talk with you before you go.
Yeah, well. But yeah, I mean, it was completely out of the blue. And to be honest, at first I was like, is this fake? And then my boyfriend was like, Lizzy, why would they just think it was funny that you came all the way down to Downing Street. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I'm like the girl that's showing up. I'm like, I do have an appointment. And they're like, no, you don't. Go away.
You've been catfished.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe.
The scammers have moved on from your rich uncle in Nigeria has left you $100 million.
Yeah, and he's at Downing Street. I mean,
that's brilliant.
Yeah. So
Maybe you can take some maple. I can't. It's a tongue
Maple
twister.
bacon
Bacon jam.
Yeah.
And practice that. Take a couple of jars with you. Maybe that'll get people.
Yeah, I mean, they'll probably be confiscated. You don't think? Because they'll be like
prison.
I know, but they'll be like, this is a liquid, or whatever. You could make
Take
a bomb.
your shoes off.
I mean, they've already said like you're not allowed any phones.
Oh, really?
Like you have to bring your invitation printed out. If you don't have it printed out, we won't accept it. You can't come in. Blah blah blah.
Oh, really? There's rules.
Yeah. Apparently, there's some security. Who
Outrageous.
knew? Who knew?
You take your passport as well to prove that you.
I don't know. I'll have actually that. I might maybe or like a driver's license, possibly some form of identification, maybe. Yeah, no, that's a good one. I'll remember that.
Just in case. You just try and break in.
Could do.
That's exciting, though.
That's really cool, isn't it?
Yeah, but totally still a cat.
Yeah, it would be cool. Well, the Downing Street cat. Yeah, I'll take that home.
Selfie with a cat.
If anything else, that's my claim to fame. Women gets invited to Downing Street to represent female founders. Steals cat. Not doing much for women here, am I?
Any publicity is great publicity, isn't it?
Yeah, that's brilliant. So, Lizzy, what is your kind of main goal for 2019? What's the plan?
Oh well, it's a bit up in the air. So with myndr, we're currently still waiting at this present moment to find out whether we've got onto the next stage of Ignite. That would solve a few problems because they do finance you. We would get, I think it's £45,000. And obviously that just gives us a little bit more leeway and a little bit more time to continue this kind of research model and MVP and prototyping before we pitch for that larger scale investment. If we don't get on the next stage, it's not the end of the day. We haven't put all our eggs in one basket, but it does just change things a little bit as far as, okay, well, we've got this much money. How long is it going to last? And what do we need to do in the meantime to make sure that we don't just run out and we're ready for the next stage? We would really like to look at how we can start to implement the goal setting within an app form, start looking at how we can implement the machine learning and the artificial intelligence in order to kind of respond, track, and segment all the different things that are being uploaded into the system, essentially giving us a pretty amazing database of mental health how-tos when it comes to business and entrepreneurship. Emma and I have discussed about doing some net walking, which essentially would be networking, but with dogs. Which
borrow a dog.
I can't think of anything better personally.
No,
but the whole idea around that is for those that might be a little bit more uncomfortable about the whole networking scene, which is so essential to business, is that you bond over dogs first and then you can talk about other things. And just kind of removing a little bit of that awkwardness. We've talked about helping to facilitate and collaborating with different festivals and music events, having like a little myndr tent set up for people that might be getting overwhelmed or feel as though they don't have all the coping mechanisms to deal with, loud music and big crowds and things like that. But also just continuing to just sort of raise the voice and create this movement. I think more than anything, if we can get this community down and we can start really facilitating the Northeast to be kind of, I think one of the things I said a while back was, you might go to London to start up, but you come to Newcastle to really feel as though you found your place. And I think that if we can do our little bit to help facilitate that and to help business owners and entrepreneurs really feel as though they have the support and the well-being aspect of business here in Newcastle, then we've done our bit.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's a really exciting year ahead of you.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I
Lots
still
to
need
do.
like a new shower, and I need flooring to be put down in my hallway, and on top of that, I need to arrange some type of a wedding. So, I mean, we'll figure it out as it comes. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Exciting stuff.
And more public speaking. I'd love to do more public speaking as well. I've got a few gigs with some universities and colleges and things like that. But I'd really like to continue working on that and hopefully maybe getting a bit further afield.
No, perfect.
Well, so if you're interested in the public speaking side, the maple bacon jam and other great sounding products, or the myndr app, how can people find more?
So the Sweet Beet is thesweetbeet.co.uk. We do have a store online, but you can also find out anywhere nearest to you that stocks the products. If you're interested in finding out about myndr, I would really, really love it if you signed up to the newsletter as well. That's myndr.co.uk.
Do you want to spell myndr?
So yeah, sorry. myndr is MYNDR. Just a bit confusing for you. And then if you're more interested in myself personally or the public speaking, I've got my own little website at weirdlyrelatable.com where I just talk about things that are weird and slightly relatable.
Good videos though.
Oh yeah.
Fun. Excellent. Well, thank you ever so much for spending your time coming in to talk to us.
Absolutely.
It's been brilliant. It's been lots to talk about, lots to listen to, lots to learn, actually. So I've definitely be signing up for that newsletter. But all of the links will be in the show notes. So,
and we look forward to seeing the selfie with the cat at Downing Street.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And one other thing before I forget. As I mentioned, with the emails and the content that we're putting out with myndr, we are always looking for collaboration. So if there's anybody that has a story to tell or perhaps a mistake that they've made and wants to share it with us, please do. If you do want to, just email me, Lizzy, that's LIZZY at myndr.co.uk. And if you've got a failure, you can actually get one of our pretty awesome t-shirts in exchange. Has a nice little hashtag proud to fail on it. And what's better than free clothing, right?
Yeah, exactly. I've got probably a few stories for you, yes. Excellent. Well, thank you ever so much.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Lizzy.
Cheers.
Thanks everyone for listening. Check out all the show notes at inspirationnorth.com. Join us again for the next episode when we'll be chatting to another inspirational person. If you like this, subscribe and tell your friends. If you didn't like this, subscribe anyway and tell everybody.